What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zeph War Games. I am joined with Joe and Donald, and we will be going over the predicted ban list. So each of us are going to bring 3 cards that we think is a logical prediction. So keep in mind the important word of that is logical prediction. We will then bring you a wish list as well, again with 3 cards from each of us, of cards that we want to come off the ban list. They're not just going to be random cards we plucked out of our heads. They're going to be cards that have a little bit of understanding as to why, but they also have a very big kind of argument against why they can't come back. And then at the end of the video, we will answer the question that we do every single ban list about Max C. So we'll touch onto that later on. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 1 card each, and then another card each, and another card each of our predicted list, because the predicted list is the logical ones, which 9 out of 10, if you went onto YouTube and just typed in ban list predictions, the majority of people would probably say the same if their head is screwed on correctly. So, as on my screen, we're going to start with going right and then down to Donald, then back up to me. So, we'll start off with Joe. Joe, what is the first card you want to change on the list that you think is logical that it can happen this current ban list?
So my first logical one, without the obvious one, which I bet we've all got on there. So my first one is Ben 10, Cyber Angel Ben 10. I predict that she will go to 1. The reasoning behind 1 and not 0, or anything else like that is just because 1 means that if you're still playing a Cyber Angel deck, yeah, it's not as consistent and powerful, but you can still play it. I can't pick up the deck and say, "Oh, this I can't. There's nothing going on here." I still have 1 Ben 10 in the deck who can be recycled, so on and so forth, and still give me the consistency that I need. But by hitting her to 1 means that Drytron isn't unplayable. Its resources are just heavily reduced to the point where it's more manageable. So if you do hit that 1 Ben 10 with like a Crow and things like that, you as the opponent are now in a good position, but you didn't have the banners didn't have to kill the deck essentially like that. So I predict that Ben 10 to 1.
Yep, I can agree with Ben 10. I think what kind of makes it busted is the fact that it's not a once per turn and it's an if effect kind of effectively.
Yeah.
So it makes it very difficult to try and stop when it does go off. And quite like Virtual Worlds, which we'll touch on later on, the issue is not resolving 1 of the card. It's the fact that once you've resolved 1 of the card, you then get to the 2nd version and then you then get to the 3rd version. But the only argument that I would put in place that you would say, actually, how about hitting this card instead of that card, would be Natasha. But the only reason you'd hit Natasha is to weaken the Drytron's OTK capabilities for the 2nd turn. Because the standard plays that you see with Drytrons is that they go with Vanity's Fiend and Pass, or they'll go with Herald and Pass, and the Herald is going to have like 5 or 6 negates in hand. So I can see the juxtaposition between the two. I agree with Ben 10. Keeping in mind as well that Drytron do have an XYZ coming out in Lightning Overdrive that they might try to promote a little bit more. That again, a casualty of Drytron might be Union Carrier, but I hope not. But I agree with you. I think Ben 10 is a very logical card that could see some form of change on this list.
Yeah, the XCs is definitely another reason why I said 1 and not 0, because you want them to still want to play it. So.
Of course. Donald, what is your first card that you would kind of change on this list?
So the first card that I would go with would be, I think I would go with Firewall Dragon to 1 because of its errata. Obviously, Konami will probably do the same thing where they update the database and have the database with the errata, and then obviously I think we get the print in April, so they could do like they update the database, say it's errated, and then they give us the errated card and goes from the past afterwards. So that's why I think at least if it goes to 1, I mean, Cyber's decks can obviously heavily abuse this card, but it's I think for a safe bet, it's definitely guaranteed to just be put back to 1 for its errata. So I'll decide on that. Cyberverse players can correct me for this. Even if you had 3, it's not worth playing free or whatever. But yeah, at least to one is what I would predict for this one.
Yeah, again, like Donald brought the attention to just there, that the firewall has been confirmed for Ghost of the Past. So we already know that's happening. That's coming out in middle of April, which is technically, if they were to drop the ban list today, tomorrow, whenever, it would still be like a month before that. So you can still use the older Rata of Firewall. There is no physical events going on, and it would not that it would make Ghost of the Past more like wanted, but it's one of them ace cards that we still haven't got the alternate art for. It brings it back into like the meta. I don't think an ace card has ever been banned. It rightfully was banned, and I agree with Donald. I think that the fact they've got product to sell, it kind of leads into a reason of it coming back to one. Speaking of product that they want to sell, my first one is going to be Heavy Metal Foes Electromite coming to one. Now, again, this is more of a logical thing. It's not something that I'm going to be like, yes, I want this to happen. It's one of the cards where it's logically, when you think about it, is very possible. So Metal Foes just got new support. All of the original Metal Foes are being reprinted in Ghost of the Past. So again, they could reprint Heavy Metal Foes Electromite in Ghost of the Past. And Pendulums themselves aren't really doing a mass amount. They're a very good deck, and they can have utilities, and they can adapt and do other stuff like that. But I think give them back Heavy Metal Foes, because they really haven't got like core extension plays. Like, they keep getting chipped away at. They've already been hurt by the fact that they still are within Martial 4 technically. I don't think a mass amount has changed for them. And especially when you're looking at all of the support cards they want to bring out, the brand new Metaphors, and then you've got the Do Re Mi cards as well coming out in May. I believe it's been pushed back to May. There's more reason for you to give them a generic Link 2 that is only going to help out Pendulums. Now, I know they kind of, Konami seem to have this feeling of regretting bringing out Pendulums, but it gives them a bit more to move on with. Joe, what is your second card you want to change on the ban list? And I think our last one is all going to be the same, so we'll get to that together.
So, I'm going to save my second until last, just because I think we've all got it. So my new second is going to be Quick Launch. I was going to say Heart Power, but no, I think Quick Launch is a more logical one. It's one I don't want to see, because obviously I play Rockets, and I love Rockets, die-hard Rocket fan. But I can see it being hit just because it's all based on that argument where does Konami look at our fan-made tournaments or not? Because if they do, our recent tournaments, Dragon Link has been doing quite well again. And the fact that we just had a new E-Tele, quote-unquote, in the forms of the Armed Dragon stuff, I could see them hitting the older one being Quick Launch, the more powerful one, arguably, to help slow that deck down a bit, put it down a notch, without hitting things like LP and things like that, because I can see them thinking that LP is a bit too much of a hit for that deck, whereas Quick Launch, we remove some of your E-Teles and then put you down a little bit while still being able to give you more Dragon stuff. So Quick Launch is my second choice.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think Dragon Link is one of them. The Dragon Link will be it's doing well, but it'll also be a fallback of if you were to hit Virtual Worlds, which I would be amazed if they don't hit them. And if you were to hit Drytron by hitting Ben 10, you have to hit Dragon Link, otherwise Dragon Link just becomes the new number one again.
Agreed.
So Donald, what is your second card?
So my second card, logically speaking, would be True King's Return to Unlimited. Konami has a thing to do where they limit something and then semi-limit it, and then unlimit it. Examples, we have ABC Dragon Buster and Totally Awesome from this list, at the date of this recording. Ones that are obviously put to limit and then semi-limit, and then because they weren't doing anything, unlimit. True King's Return, yes, as much as it helps my ever-emphasis deck of True Draco, I still think this is something that Konami would do. This is very logical for them to do. True Draco aren't doing anything, and I hope it stays that way, honestly. But giving them like some of their cards back is very logical to do because of a deck that I think it's now can do something, but with them hitting, I think the monsters more so. It's perfectly fine as it is. To have their spells and traps to come back. So yeah, I feel like this is something that Konami would just unlimit back to free for the ban list.
I think it makes a big difference because I think one of the big issues with that card was the fact that when Diagram was at 3, and this is before you even take into account like Masterpiece and Draco Knight, is the fact that with Diagram at 3, you could consistently bring a card back, pop a card, get a search, bring the card back, pop a card, get a search, and I agree. I think it's a card that could come back without much ramification for the rest of the format, and it really wouldn't be a big issue. So I can logically see that happening. Now, my last one, before we probably go with the collective last card, and this is pretty much a toss-up between Dinos and Golden Lord. Now, both of these probably deserve to be at this level, because again, it's one of those fallouts of if you hit all of the other decks, you have to balance out these decks, otherwise they're just going to become the number one deck again. So logic speaking, either one of these cards could be hit. The more logical one that I'll be going for is going to be Scarlet Sanguine. Now, the reason you'd go with Scarlet Sanguine, now, I would say the more aggressive hit would be to hit it to 1. I think the more logical hit would be to hit it to 2. But what you got to keep in mind is that when you look at the combo decks in the format of Drytron and Virtual World, and then you look at the counterpart that is countering them decks right now, it is, of course, going to be the Eldritch. So Eldritch is a necessary evil in the sense that it's one of the very few decks that plays through the Very Friendly Dragon and kind of gets it playing. So it's an understandable card, but what I'm saying is if you were to get rid of said known card, and if you were to hit Ben 10, then you can't leave Elixirs and Golden Lords at full power. And I think Sanguine is the first balance you take out because it's one of the easiest ways of them getting the Golden Lord to the board. And I think I'd balance it out. The other card that I considered was Miscellaneous. And the only reason Miscellaneous isn't there, and it's just a little bit lower, is because Dinos, don't get me wrong, are great and massively powerful. And if Miscellaneous was to be hit, I would not be like shocked or anything like that. But I think if I had to only pick 3, the reason I'd put Sanguine above Miscellaneousaurus is purely because Sanguine, Eldritch overall are better in that sense than Dinos. Just. So moving to the last one, and I don't need explanations on this. So first of all, Joe, what is your last one?
VFD.
Donald, what's your last one?
VFD ban.
My one's obviously VFD. Now,
but are you banned or limited?
No. It doesn't stay. It doesn't stay. Okay. Yes, it's a pain in the backside. Like I can understand why some people would argue to put it to 1, but it's a card that literally is so easy to get out right now. Now, previously it wasn't as big of a deal, and I saw it back during there was like a format with Eldritch, Adamant Spectres, and Dinos were spitting it out like no tomorrow, and that was an issue because when I was watching these streams and watching these games, I don't think we successfully saw anyone break a VFD. And that was before you then add a Chuchi trap that goes, okay, you want to try and imperm me? Well, I'm going to destroy my own monster, and it still goes through. So, the fact that it's so easily made right now, the fact that it pretty much says, you can't attack, you can't activate effects in possession, and if I call the correct attribute in your hand, you can't even activate that. And then the fact that VFD or Virtual Worlds can produce 2 of them is just, it's not really coincidental, and not really something to consider highly. It's just one of them little, like, if you're writing down the list, you go, like, number 1, you can't attack and can't do anything. Number 2, easily made. Number 3, you can make 2 of them. Like, literally, it's at the bottom of the list, but it's still a pain in the backside. So, to me, it needs to go, because it's a card that's easily made that says no. Now, if you were to, I don't know how if you wanted to keep VFD, I don't think there's actually a way of you being able to, like, unless you ban, like, multiple cards, there's no way of you being able to keep VFD in the game and make him less consistent to be made because Virtual World just spit out level 9 synchros and
the whole point of the deck. Like, it's
mad.
literally everything they do.
I think on the flip side of that as well, is
I've heard
getting rid
some
of VFD,
people. I've heard some people say get rid of. They can see them getting rid of Cloud Castle instead.
I made that as a joke as well. I was like, can you imagine if they just get rid of Cloud Castle? It was like, point being,
oh, look at you can't make it now. Like, replace.
But yeah, I think VFD was a unanimous decision. I think it's on. I don't think there's a single YouTuber out there that doesn't have VFD as their number 1 or that they're one of the first cards to be banned. So I don't think we need to give VFD much more spotlight. And don't get me wrong, I loved VFD. I used to put it in 6 Sound True Kings and True King Dinos and all that stuff, but his time has come. Fine. So I'm going to pass this straight over to you, Joe. What is the first card on your wish list? So the difference between a prediction list and a wish list is a wish list, you can put whatever you want on it, but we will try and challenge you to make it a logical comeback, but there's no like reprint, ominent reprint, or justification to the meta for it to come back, is the argument.
Cool buy to 3. Cross out's not here yet. And it's not confirmed to be in any product as far as I can remember. So I could understand it still being at 1 if we had a definite 100% confirmed crossout's going to be in said set. But because it's not, there's no reason why it's gone to 1 so early. Put it back to 3, maybe even 2, but I want it to be at 3. It helps every deck in the game. It helps us rogue players, be able to hit all these hand traps that are just so prominent right now. We're in a graveyard heavy format, so it's an arguable resource for that as well. Put it to 3, help us play the game. Yeah, cool by the grave to 3.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think they might do what like Donald suggested, where they might just drip feed it back. So you might get it back to
I
2,
could see them doing that.
and then because I mean, I can't see Crossout Designator coming in Ancient Warriors or Ancient Guardians. I can't see it coming in Ghost of the Past. That would, I don't. If they did put it in Ghost of the Past, great. But I think it would be a wasted slot because that set is already going to sell. If I was Konami and thinking logically, they would put Crossout Designator in a set that is either not got a lot of hype or not going to sell. So you'd probably look at like an import for Lightning Overdrive, or if they've got enough for that, they'll then move it into the next set and go on and on and on from there.
Mm-hmm.
Donald, what is your first card on your wish list?
So my first card was also going to be called by to 3. I'm speakly saying this as a combo player myself. I also wanted this to come back to 3, but for the sake of discussion, and I would change this to I want to see Broad Ball come back to 1. This is because that. Admittedly, this is because I do favor for the Zodiacs. It's the year of the Ox as well. You know, like give Zodiacs ability to search the Beast Warriors. Like like the only thing they're doing now is just probably pumping out Zeus. Yeah, there's technically an extra material for Zeus. And I personally would just like to see Broad Ball back. How this would affect every other deck. I think every deck would have a generic,
engine again.
Engine.
Let's just bring back the Zodiac engine.
But I think this is going to be something that would be really interesting to see, and because I think a lot of more players will then be able to utilize. I think the Tri Brigade engine. I think if they have the beast as a Fractor that can like ditch itself to do stuff. That's just my take. I would like to just see Broad Ball back to 1.
just know. Because so the issue I've got with that is Broad Ball then becomes a +2 material for Zeus. Because you do your full combo, Broad Ball search out Viper, and then you attach Viper. So Zeus now no longer is an 8 material Zeus, it's a 10 material Zeus, and you're kind of like, well.
Damn.
I like the idea of the fractal. I like the fractal idea. I think that's kind of cool.
Like, yeah, you could argue like bring back like Broad Ball, but then hit Zeus. Like, you know,
you can have this. You can't have this.
You can have this, but you can't have the thing you want it for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Perfectly balanced.
I'm pretty much going to play off of the back of Konami's good old fashioned of you can have it at 3, no, you can have it at 2, you can have it at 3. And I'm going for Mali, Destiny Hero Malicious. I want to play it my heroes. Like 1 minute it's at 3, the next minute it's at 2, and it's like 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. Just give it to me at 3, okay? Now it's definitely more of a wish list. There's nothing to back up Mali coming back to 3 at all. It's more so of a kind of a want. Yes, Dark Warrior will be a thing again, but I don't think they'll be as dominant it would still be a great card to utilize. I think the one thing that I miss about Mali at 3 as well is you could use it in the Nemesis, and it kind of I don't know. It was just a nice thing. It's just something that I'd want, and that's why it's on a wish list and not a prediction list. Joe, your second card that is on your wish list to come back.
My second card, funny enough, with the hatred against Virtual World, I still want to see E-Tally to 2. Purely on the basis that I really like the Assault Mode engine. And E-Tally helps that engine so much. I see so many combos online as well as just my own personal testing where it's just like, oh, if you just add the one E-Tally to said combo, you get to improve it so much just because it accesses the side effect. It's like, well, great. Thanks for showing me a combo that involves a limited card. So, if not E-Tally, definitely 1-for-1. So you could arguably put both of these in this slot just because they, to me, serve the exact same function. Where it's like, bring me said card to 2 so it helps my my level 1 monster engine. So E-Tally / 1-for-1.
I think yes and no for E-Telly. If they plan to produce more mutant support, then E-Telly to 2 is arguably possible. And it's kind of a give and take, because then you take away VFD, so it stops Virtual World being so oppressive. I would also want them to take away Except Saber Gotham, so that Virtual World they can become a rank 9 playing deck, they can become a level 9 synchro deck, and their trap card's incredibly powerful, which is absolutely fine. I just don't want a card in the game to say, you can't play, and be easy. So there's a difference between Zexal and VFD in the form that Zexal, yes, you can't use any card effects, but you can still attack Zexal. You can still clear Zexal off.
Yeah.
So
and it takes like 5 cards out of your extra deck and like 4 out of your main deck. So
exactly.
Like, you really have to want to play Zexal.
I'm not going to be like heartbroken if they do ban Zexal, but I'm like, if someone says to me, well, why are you banning VFD and not Zexal? Well, that's the reason why. 1-for-1 I'd love to have back as well, but at 3 or 2. But again, I think it's quite specific because it sets up Graveyard as well. It could be something good for the Abyss deck. I'm not too sure.
It could also be good for the Tri-Brigade deck if they really want to push that Lyrilusk deck that's been quite popular at the moment. It's like, hey, have another 1-for-1. I'll be happy with that. I play Kepler. Give me another way to get to that.
What is your second one?
So my second card this is to follow up with Call by the Grave, but it's going to be Red Reboot at 3. This is once again speaking as a combo player side, having to deal with the Solemn Brigade, which admittedly, for some reason, people aren't really playing the Solemn cards at this moment, but there's still a fair amount of traps of like. I speak personally from like dealing with floodgates and all of that, and then just having the one card to effectively try and counter all the control or stun decks isn't great. This is just so that it can be seen more often, and if need be, to be sided in as a place of 3 for matchups. And like, I feel like the only reason we had Red Reboot to 1 was to help promote Lightning Storm. But yes, you can also counter argue with me that we have Harpy's Feather Duster. But with the way the game is, a lot of traps, they are very reactive. They and then yet they are very they have additional abilities in the grave, even if you do destroy them as a result. And then we now also have a lot more traps that go if they're destroyed by an opponent's card, mainly due to I think the Unchained stuff. Do X effect or Y effect and stuff like that. So I'm just personally just speaking for the fact that I just would like to see Red Reboot back to 3 for the fact that we've now have Lightning Storm. It's had its run, and now we give I guess in a sense budget players another way to combo back row decks. So
yeah, I agree. I think with cards like Red Reboot, it's kind of one of them things that it's kind of like a domino effect. It's if you do this, then we would like to have this kind of aspect behind it. So I think it'd be nice to get Red Reboot back. Definitely at 2, 3 would be awesome as well.
Yes, two is
Um,
fine.
my second one would be Harp Horror back to 1. Now, purely because, I mean, again, we're looking at bringing back all of these old decks. Now, what I'm saying by this is Harp Horror never really got the chance to play with the Gearsu, so it would be interesting to see how they kind of interact together, because they'll then have 2 starters and they'll be a little bit more consistent. Orcus are a great deck. They just, I, it's a shame when you see one deck lose one piece and the entire deck kind of crumbles. So it'd be nice to give them the one piece back to then allow them to keep playing. So you look at strikers; they kind of got the little bits back and forth. Um, Again, I'm not going to be shocked if it doesn't come back. This is more of a wishful thing. I'm not even an Orcus player myself, but it would be nice to kind of have this. And the one thing that Orcus had that I thought was really nice in comparison to everything else is it had the balance between combo and control. So it wasn't the greatest going second because it struggled to break certain boards unless you built it to be particularly that way. But what Orcus did have the ability to do is if it went first, it could then go down a control route with Ding, or it goes to a control route with Crescendo, and it had a nice little combo consistency. Now, obviously, it gets a little bit more damaging because you've obviously got the PK link now as well back, and you'll have Dragoon, which is another card we haven't talked about. But to be honest, I don't think Dragoon's done enough in this format to merit being banned as of yet. They might hit something in the engine, but I honestly don't think they will.
Red Ice Fusion.
Red Ice Fusion. But yeah, mine would be Heart Horror, just to kind of see that deck play a little bit more. Because like we see Strikers are still being played. Thunder Dragons can still be played. And if you brought back Colossus, they will be played as well. So bring back Heart Horror. And like the format is pretty much diverse at this moment in time, in general anyway. The only thing I don't like about it is it's literally VFD pass. Let's be a little bit more creative. Be Colossus, because 9 out of 10, if you go Colossus and pass, you can. It's a lot easier to break than VFD because you can still attack and you can still activate effects. So if we're trying to compare and contrast all of those, that's why I'd say Harp Horror should come back. Just to kind of give the crew, give the Orcas a bit more playability. And back at 1, I think it went from 3 to none was quite harsh. Joe, what is your final card on your wish list to come back?
My final card is it's going to set up for our next discussion. I want Max C to 3. I legit want Max C to 3 just because it is the ultimate way to control the game within the game without having to wait for a ban list. By having this card in the format at 3, not 2, not 1, nothing like that. Those numbers don't exist in Max C. It's free. It's free. Because we then have an already in-game mechanic in one card to slow down all these combo heavy decks, all these like I'm gonna vomit my deck kind of deck, like literally, not even my hand, my deck, my literal deck or extra deck. I'm gonna vomit that out, and unless you're gonna stop it, GG. Max C is the card that says, "Cool, I'm gonna give you an option." And then it's a good way for players to like talk to each other within the game. So it's like, cool, I'm gonna drop the Max C, and now it's like that kind of like inbuilt discussions, like, ooh, do I do it now? Do I challenge that? It's a cool game mechanic. It's a cool little interaction that we don't see anymore, and I do kind of miss that. Yeah, it is annoying to be on the receiving end, but that's why I have it at 3. So now both players have that like balance to see this card in their opening hands. So like this is always the argument that I would say to people, like, oh, why is us and the OCG so different? It's because they have Maxi mate. That's why like said deck it doesn't do so well over there. It's because they have this card. So I want Maxi to 3. It helps all the budget players now because we should all have this card now. It's coming common, super, gold, literally. It's coming every rarity. Every player should have a place of this. Gives everyone a fair, even grounds to play along with Call by the Grave. So
would that be your catch then? So would your catch be that if Maxi comes back to 3, Call by the Grave has to be at 3?
Yes. Now I feel like if you Call by the Grave, you can have back to 3 no matter what. It can be by itself. Maxi, if you want Maxi to 3, you have to have Call by the 2. Because then you have that counter to the meta, if that makes sense. So you got the meta up there, that's the problem. You have Maxi to counter that. But now to counter that, you have the Call by the Grave. So it's kind of like a little stepping stone of counters. So it makes the game fair, makes the game balanced. You'll see some changes, and it'll be for the good, in my personal opinion. So Maxi to 3
Cool.
Wait, why
is
are
my
you doing
final
this?
wish.
Donald, what is your last one?
My last one. So speaking of bringing back old decks, this is going to be a hot take out there. It's going to be Spellbook of Judgment 1.
It's old.
On the basis that, hold up, I'm going to hear people just going to ramble on me on this. On the basis that Jalgin is gets banned, because the whole reason I feel like a lot of the issue Judgment is that yes, it gives you +7 hands in deck, and then you go, here's a monster where you can't special summon, and then pass. Now, in this format, in this day and age of game, having 7 spellbugs in hand that don't interact during your opponent's turn is might as well be nothing at all. You can have all these cards like in your hand, but if they can't interact with your opponent, they might as well be dead cards. Like, and your opponent could just go like, okay, cool. I know what's in your hand, like, the 7 cards in your hand, and you just simply negate the particular cards of spellbooks, like the searches of fate, the interruptions, and go, cool. What else are you gonna do? Besides from trying to summon world and blow up everything. So yes, it's very out there. World Spellbook of Judgment. It's a card that just gives the spellbook player a lot of plus. But in the sense of this game, you might as well count it as like it's a good plus, but it doesn't interact with your opponent. So that's why if I was to say, like as Joe said, if Maxi was to 3, and then I would be like the counterproductive argument of yes, Maxi should come back to 3 on the condition that pretty much every other hand trap is banned. So that if you drop the Maxi, you have all these cards in hand, you can't interact with your opponent. Is that sort of my fair way of to try and counter? Admittedly, we can't really have that sort of thing because hand traps are a necessary evil to do stuff, to counter to so the opponent doesn't have ridiculous end boards and stuff alike. So yeah, that's why with this my argument being of Judgment 1 is spellbooks can get all this resource, but they can't interact with the opponent with all of these cards in hand. Yeah, and Jalgan ought to be here. It's some way, but even still, a Jalgan on the board is not exactly one of the biggest things to sort of run over. Arguably, in a sense, for what it is. But I know a lot of decks these days require to special summon, so in the sense that they could have the Jalgan, but then what have we got these days? We've got Impulse, we've got Chalice, and even Dark Ruler no more for just the sake of getting rid of one monster or whatever. So yeah, I think Judgment could very well come back to 1.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't worry about Jalgan too much because then when you look at kind of like we've still got Vanity's Fiend, Vanity's Ruler, all of that running around in meta, so it's kind of like Jalgan isn't that big of an issue, and Judgment would be. I think it would be fine to come back. It'll be interesting to see if people will start using engines or what they can kind of do to make it consistent and splash. But yeah, I can arguably see it could come back with that minimal issue. My last one is going to be a synchro, and it's Denlong, the first of the Yang Zings. Now, again, it's a juxtaposition because quite like Lib, the World Chalice, or the Ib, the World Chalice that ended up getting banned as well. The reason I'd want Denlong back is because the reason most people abused Denlong was back in Dino format that you'd make Denlong, then you would send, make a level 9, and make VFD in Dinos. That would not be a possibility if you'd ban VFD. Denlong would then come back. It would still be a very good card because you can abuse its levels, make it a synchro. And then you're looking at stuff like Halley Firebrax, and it's a rocky card to come back if it does. But it'd be interesting to see what would happen when Denlong does come back, or if Denlong comes back, purely because there is no VFD end board. It would purely be used as an extender and kind of go from there. So just going to touch on a couple of cards that we haven't talked about yet, and then we'll wrap up on the Maxi talk. So Halley Firebrax, they've just released an ultimate version for it. Not a lot of people have got it. I can't see it being banned this format. And my argument with Halley Firebrax is, yes, it helps out the odd meta decks, But if you keep hitting the meta decks at their core components, they then become weaker and weaker. And then Halley Firebrax is there as a general kind of card like Isolde that helps out all warriors or all synchro decks to help them still be playable.
The thing is, our top meta decks aren't even playing it.
Yeah. So I don't think it's not as big of a problem as it once was.
Yeah.
But that's probably because of the way the format's gone. Now, when the format adapts and changes, it might change. So it depends on what future aspirations Konami kind of have. I think like you'd still want Needle Fiber or Halley Firebrax for like the Bearticles as well. I think I haven't looked into them too much.
I think to 1, just like the
even a 1,
OCG.
I don't think
It puts it in check.
1 is fine, yeah.
1's fine.
I don't think at 1 it's needed because I think like you're not going to play more than 1, but it would just be it would just be a hit for the sake of hitting it. And then the other card that we look at is like Dragoon. Now I don't think Dragoon will be hit himself because unlike the OCG, it hasn't been as dominant as it was over there. It's still an incredibly powerful card, but it's easier to get over. Plus, it means your opponent is playing 3 bricks in their deck if they're not naturally playing Red Eyes or Dark Magician. And on top of that, they're then playing Verti Anaconda, which is going to burn them for 2k. So as soon as their opponent stops their Dragoon or gets past their Dragoon or whatever, they're then making it easier to be OTK'd. So sitting on the Dragoon in a uncontrolled format is not as strong. Like you look back at the OCG, they're more controlled format. Their format's a little bit more open. Like Joe mentioned, they have Maxi as well. So you can't really compare the two as closely, which is why obviously the lists are so different. So I don't think it'll be banned this list. It might be a future ban. You've also got to keep in mind it's not as easy to make as a lot of people make it out. Yes, you can go with the Red Ice Fusion Turbo play, but it's not going to get you to that end goal that you might want and desire the most. So we've already heard from Joe about his Maxi. We've touched with Donald about his Maxi. I think it's unanimous that all of us want Maxi back. There would be conditions on Maxi. The conditions would be that Callby would have to come back to free just because you've then got Ash and Callby to counter it. Maxi might be one of them cards you hold back on until Crossout Designator is announced, and then you've got 9 counters to it. The other argument for Maxi coming back as well is purely for the fact that, or for me personally, while we're in this lockdown period, and we're only going to be in this lockdown period, hopefully, touch wood and everything, for maybe a month more or 2, it might be worth to give Maxi back to say, right, let's see what it does before we get into mass events. And when we get into massive events, we'll then know and have an understanding of saying, no, Maxi can never come back to the game at any point, because even at this low point in the game and the state that it is, Maxi just doesn't work. Now, that's kind of the angle you sit on, is whether you want Maxi back or if Maxi don't. There's no middle ground. Like Joe said, there's no 1, there's no 2. If you're a combo player, some combo players actually want it back, some combo players don't want it back. If you're a control player, it's probably one of the best hand traps you could possibly have, and I understand that. But then that's where the argument comes in, that if you're a control player, you need to have some ramifications. If you drop that Maxi, your opponent is then going to have the ability of playing maybe 3 red reboots or 3 Call by the Graves. You need to be able to... Like, it's not as good to just sit there and go, combo, Ash, play through it, Nibiru, play through it. Like, that stuff like that can't happen. But then again, you can't have decks that literally go, dropped an Ash, dropped a Nibiru, normal summon 1 monster, full combo, with no ramification coming back to it. And that's another thing you have to keep in mind, is if someone's playing Maxi, it makes it more consistent and easier to get to Nibiru's, to get to Ash Blossoms, to get to your hand traps, because we're playing like 12 hand traps right now in the format.
I feel like though, to that argument, it's your fault for keep playing. You know what I mean? So you've got, because like
you know, I take bad
because
you
if
for
you
playing
do think
Yugioh.
about it, it's like, well, like, cool, I'm a combo player, because like nobody, like, unless you are a combo player deck, nobody likes to face combo player decks at the moment because of the boards that they're producing. It's just literally break my board or I win. So you have the Maxi to counter that. If you choose to decide to play through it, and you do get hit by the Nibiru and things like that, it's like, well, I warned you, mate. And it's like, and you can look at that negatively, and I'm not going to deny that, but you can also look at that in a humorous kind of like player interaction. It's like, yeah, my bad. I shouldn't have played.
I don't think I've ever seen a person go, oh, I've just been Maxi'd. Oh, now I just got Nibiru. Good play.
It's that Mo meme, just like,
you're gonna get those people who are gonna laugh through it. It's like,
No,
You know,
there is
like,
no
yeah, you're
laughing
gonna.
through it.
Oh my word.
I agree
I
with what you're
would.
saying.
I would
And
be that guy.
the
Like,
most meta decks
it's
right
like,
now, if they're smart enough and they're strong enough, they make a counter to Nibiru anyway. So even if
yeah,
they're under,
exactly.
like the strongest decks right now, if you were to drop this against Virtual, they probably wouldn't care because of like, you know what, you can have 20 cards in your hand, and unless those 20 cards are going to be near enough perfect, I'm still going to probably end up on 2 VFDs and a Chuchi trap and a card that's going to banish all the cards from the field. So it's kind of like, I can't attack your board, so all I've got to do is break your board and then pass back to you for you to rebuild that board anyway. There is the issue with Maxi is it fits within that very grey thin line, and all I'm saying is I would personally want it back just to prove the point for it to come back, be made
Test
it
the
free,
waters.
and then people will be like, no, definitely, it definitely can't. Like everyone of this generation of this format can go, yeah, no, Maxi's broken, don't want it back, or everyone will go, all right, it's back, it's not actually as bad as it once was. Now, I personally hate Maxi. I hated using it. I hated facing it. It was a giant pain in the ass, and it's kind of one of them cards I just want to see because it means every single ban list we have, and we do it every time. Every ban list, every channel, it's always like Maxi to free or bring Maxi back. It's like the only reason you're asking that is because you don't know what it's like with Maxi in the format. If you bring Maxi back, but let's say the ban list happens tomorrow, but Maxi comes back to free. 2 months down the line or 3 months down the line, we get another ban list. Maxi goes to 0. After that, or even if it doesn't go to 0, after that 1 month period or that 2 month period, you'll be able to go, yeah, Maxi's broken, it should never have come back. Or you'll be able to go, no, all right, fine, Maxi's kind of balanced the format. There would be a definition. There wouldn't be a, let's see. It would be, no, ban it, and then every ban list video from now on would no longer be, bring Maxi back to free. It would be, yeah, Maxi stays banned. I'm quite happy with Maxi staying banned.
Yeah. I'd like to. I think like that's the final thing. I'd like to see how it works. I'd like to see because we can speculate like 5 videos under the sun. You know what I mean? Like we can speculate all we can. We don't know until we actually see it and try and see how it works. Right? Because there's arguments to both. There's hatred and goods to both. Put it back. See how it goes. I think everyone though unanimously agrees that 1 and 2, no.
Yeah.
0 or 3, fine.
3.
Good. Those are the numbers. So if we can try 3, see how it goes. Boom boom. But I do still stand. We have to have Call by the Grave. We got to have the counter to that.
I think the issue with me is that it's because I'm specifically a OTK Medallion player. It's just like,
I play DD,
so
Donald.
bad.
I should hate Maxi.
No, but
I
Donald
play
can't make
DDD.
a negate. Donald starts combo. He can't do anything. In the past, when we didn't have Nibiru and all the other hand traps, Donald would go Maxi challenge. What is that? And just keep going. But
I always
now,
You
Donald
just
has to go
OTK.
Maxi challenge. Please don't tell me you've got Nibiru in your deck because he can't make the negate. He can't stop it. So the
I can't,
Maxi
yeah.
challenge is just pointless.
Yeah, but Donald has to now just bet like, do they main deck Nibiru?
Like,
Even if they don't, they're gonna side it back in. Like Maxi,
No,
Yeah,
it's
they'll
still
side
be
it, but
there.
then Donald can side to Nibiru.
you're just gonna like give me PTSD of when John Nash just like cited Battle Fader just for me. So he just goes like Maxi draws, and it's like attack Battle Fader. Like, come on.
Result time.
Don't worry, Donald. I'll just make 3 flare metals like I used to, and say, how much can you burn? Calculate your math.
And even still, like as a Medallion player, I can't use it really effectively unless I am the control type. But as a like, because it just is completely against everything I stand for, basically.
Hang on, you play D Shifter. What are you talking about? Like, surely you
That's
put
the- that's
Maxi in, and Maxi is just more chance to get your 1 card OTK combo.
Yeah, brilliant. Maxi to D shifter. You got
Anyway.
Maxi to Nibiru. I'm D shifter.
The problem is where it's like, yeah, arguably there's going to be a lot of decks that are going to want all the cards in the deck and not in their hand. That's the problem. But yeah, as I digress.
Yeah.
Cool.
That-
Alright, well, that was our video of 3 predicted cards. Technically 9. Well, a little bit less than that. 7, because you all had the same last one. And then 9 of our wish list cards. Cards that we would love to see come back, cards we would like to see, and reasons behind it. We hope you like this video, so please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you do not miss out on any more upcoming content. We will, of course, drop the ban list video for you the second it hits. But with all of that out of the way,
tonight.
thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, guys, as absolutely always, stay safe.
Happy Dolan.